Unshaken, how to stay grounded when provoked. Mindset and motivation for success. In the face of disrespect, a sharp word, a dismissive gesture, an unfair judgment, what's your first impulse? Society often conditions us to equate silence with weakness, urging us to fire back, defend our honor, and prove our strength through immediate verbal confrontation. But what if true power lies not in the volume of our reaction, but in the quiet mastery of our response? What if choosing silence isn't submission, but a profound demonstration of inner strength and unshakable self-worth? Let's explore the transformative power of staying quiet when disrespect comes your way. The misconception of silence, strength versus submission. Let us begin by dismantling a deeply ingrained yet fundamentally flawed societal assumption. The idea that remaining silent in the face of disrespect equates to weakness, fear, or passive submission. Too often people operate under the belief that if you don't immediately counter an insult with a fiery retort, if you don't engage in verbal combat to defend your honor, you are somehow conceding defeat, allowing the other person to gain the upper hand, to get the best of you. This couldn't be further from the truth. In reality, reacting impulsively, driven by the heat of the moment, rarely demonstrates genuine strength. Rather, it often proves the exact opposite, that the other person has successfully gained control over your emotional state. Consider the dynamic carefully. When someone's words or actions manage to provoke an immediate, uncontrolled emotional response in you, perhaps lashing out in anger, becoming flustered and defensive, dissolving into tears, or engaging in escalating arguments, who truly holds the power in that interaction? It is not you. The individual who successfully provoked you has achieved their likely objective: to disrupt your inner peace, to manipulate your emotional state, to gain a sense of control by dictating your reaction. The very moment you provide them with that uncontrolled, emotionally charged response, you inadvertently hand them the very power they were seeking. You validate their attempt to get under your skin, confirming that their words or actions hold sway over your internal equilibrium. Think back to instances you have witnessed where someone lost their temper when faced with an insult or perceived disrespect. Did they appear truly strong, confident, and in command of the situation? Or did they, more often, appear out of control, perhaps even foolish, their raw emotion clearly overriding rational thought and personal dignity? The loudest person in the room is rarely the most powerful. True, enduring strength resides not in the volume of the reaction, but in the quiet composure, the deliberate self-restraint, the refusal to allow external provocations to dictate one's internal state or outward behavior. Silence in this context is not emptiness or passivity. It is the tangible presence of profound inner discipline, emotional regulation, and unwavering self-mastery. Recognizing the provocation, don't take the bait. It's essential to recognize that disrespect often functions as a deliberate provocation, a calculated attempt to elicit a specific reaction from you. People may test your boundaries, push your buttons, or say inflammatory things simply to see if they can shake your composure, gain attention, or assert dominance by controlling your emotional response. Sometimes this stems from their own insecurities. They feel powerless, so they try to exert power by upsetting others. Sometimes it stems from a lack of emotional maturity or self-control on their part. Sometimes, sadly, it stems from a place of malice, a desire to inflict pain or create chaos, because they themselves lack inner peace. They thrive on conflict and seek to pull others into their internal storm, perhaps finding a perverse sense of validation or control in doing so. When you learn to view disrespect not merely as a personal attack demanding immediate defense, but potentially as bait deliberately thrown out to hook your emotions, your entire approach can change. You realize that reacting angrily or defensively is precisely the outcome the provocateur desires. Engaging with the bait validates their tactic and fuels the negative dynamic. However, when you consciously choose to remain silent, when you refuse to swallow the hook and engage with the chaos they are attempting to create, you effectively neutralize their strategy. You deny them the satisfaction of controlling your reaction. You send a powerful nonverbal message. Your attempt to disrupt my peace has failed. Your words or actions do not hold that kind of power over me. This intentional choice of silence or calm disengagement is not about suppressing legitimate feelings or pretending the disrespect didn't occur. Acknowledging the sting of hurt, the flash of anger, or the sense of injustice internally is a natural and valid human response. The critical difference lies in what you choose to do next. Do you allow that initial emotional surge to hijack your behavior, leading to impulsive words or actions you might later regret? Do you expend precious mental and emotional energy formulating counter-arguments, justifying your position, or plotting retaliation against someone who likely isn't interested in reason or reconciliation anyway? Or do you acknowledge the internal feeling, take a conscious breath, process it internally without letting it dictate your outward response, and make a deliberate, disciplined choice not to grant the provocation the power it seeks? Choosing the latter path, recognizing disrespect as potential bait, and consciously refusing to engage, preserves your invaluable energy, protects your inner peace, maintains your dignity, and keeps you firmly in control of yourself, irrespective of the other person's inappropriate behavior. The armor of self-worth, confidence needs no argument. A common fear associated with remaining silent in the face of disrespect is the worry that others will interpret it as weakness, that people might think they can take advantage of you or walk all over you if you don't immediately and forcefully stand up for yourself verbally. This fear, however, often stems from a fundamental misunderstanding of where true strength originates. It mistakenly equates outward aggression or immediate verbal defense with inner power. In reality, genuine strength, particularly the kind rooted in authentic self-worth and confidence, doesn't feel the compulsive need to constantly prove itself through arguments, defensiveness, or seeking external validation. Consider the majestic lion, a powerful symbol of strength and courage. If a yapping jackal were to hurl insults or challenges its way, would the lion feel compelled to engage in a lengthy, roaring debate to justify its dominance or prove its strength? Certainly not. The lion possesses an innate, quiet certainty of its own power and position in the hierarchy. It doesn't require the jackal's validation or need to win a verbal sparring match to affirm its identity. Similarly, when you cultivate a deep, unwavering internal sense of your own value, understanding your strengths, acknowledging your weaknesses without letting them define you, trusting your core integrity, Independent of fluctuating external opinions, you develop a comparable resilience. You begin to understand that someone else's attempt to diminish you through disrespectful words or actions actually reveals far more about their own character flaws, insecurities, biases, or internal struggles than it does about your true worth or reality. Because your sense of self is securely anchored within, their external negativity loses its power to wound. Their provocations fail to penetrate your inner armor because you simply don't grant them credibility or significance. Individuals who possess genuine inner confidence and profound self-respect don't feel obligated to jump into every battle or respond defensively to every perceived slight. They understand intrinsically that their fundamental worth isn't diminished by someone else's poor behavior, negative opinion, or attempt to provoke them. They don't feel the compulsive need to loudly announce their strength, constantly justify their decisions, or meticulously defend their position because their confidence emanates quietly and assuredly from within. Their composure, their purpose-driven actions, their refusal to be easily rattled speak far more eloquently about their strength than any reactive retort or angry outburst ever could. When you learn to carry yourself with this quiet dignity, this grounded self-assurance, others intuitively recognize it. They perceive your strength not in the volume of your response, but in your unwavering refusal to be easily shaken, manipulated, or drawn into unnecessary pettiness. True power resides not in the constant need to assert dominance or win arguments, but in the quiet, unshakable confidence that requires no external validation to remain intact. Silence in this context becomes a statement of profound self-assurance. The wisdom of disengagement, choosing your battles. Choosing silence after being disrespected is emphatically not about advocating for passivity in the face of genuine injustice or refusing to engage in necessary constructive confrontation when appropriate. There are undoubtedly times when directly addressing wrongdoing, clearly articulating boundaries, speaking truth to power, or defending oneself or others is not only appropriate, but morally required. However, strategic silence is about exercising profound wisdom and keen discernment, recognizing that not every battle is worth your energy. Not every comment warrants the dignity of a response, and not every provocation deserves your engagement. It involves understanding that your time, your focus, your emotional well-being, and your inner peace are incredibly precious, finite resources, far too valuable to be squandered on pointless arguments, interactions with individuals committed to negativity, or conflicts that serve no constructive purpose. Some arguments are simply distractions, cleverly disguised attempts by others or even by spiritual forces to pull you off your chosen path, drain your focus away from your goals, and entangle you in unproductive, energy-sapping conflict. Some words are thrown out like deliberate bait, intended solely to provoke an emotional reaction, gain control over your state of mind, or satisfy someone else's need for drama. When you develop the spiritual and emotional intelligence to recognize these tactics for what they are, choosing calm disengagement or strategic silence instead of reacting defensively becomes an act of profound wisdom and self-preservation. You effectively refuse to take the bait. You decline to play their game according to their rules. By doing so, you not only preserve your invaluable energy and protect your inner peace, but you often win the encounter without ever needing to engage in the fight itself. You maintain control over yourself and your response, regardless of their attempt to manipulate or provoke. Therefore, the next time you feel that familiar surge of anger or hurt rising within you after experiencing disrespect, make a conscious effort to pause. Before reacting impulsively, take a deep, centering breath. Actively ask yourself several critical, clarifying questions. Is engaging with this person or situation truly worth the expenditure of my limited time and emotional energy? Is reacting likely to achieve any positive, constructive outcome, or will it merely escalate the negativity and drain me further? Does this particular person's opinion or behavior genuinely hold the power to diminish my intrinsic value or derail my God-given purpose? More often than not, when you honestly filter the situation through these discerning questions, the answer will become remarkably clear. Engaging is simply not worth the cost to your peace, your focus, or your well-being. Internalize this powerful truth. Someone else's words or actions only possess the power to define or diminish you if you grant them that power by internalizing their negativity. Their disrespect fundamentally belongs to them. It is a reflection of their character, their perspective, their internal state. It only becomes your burden if you consciously choose to pick it up and carry it through rumination, anger, or defensiveness. Choosing silence in many instances is therefore not about passively letting things slide or condoning wrongdoing. It is a conscious, powerful decision. It is a decision to prioritize the protection of your own inner peace above the fleeting, often illusory satisfaction of a sharp retort or winning a pointless argument. It is a decision to maintain your personal dignity by refusing to descend to the level of the disrespect shown to you. It is a decision to walk away with your self-control, your composure, and your focus firmly intact. Recognizing that your strategic silence often speaks more profoundly about your strength, your character, and your wisdom than any angry words ever could. Guarding your fuel tank, the crucial economy of energy. It is absolutely essential to recognize and treat your personal energy, encompassing your mental focus, your emotional capacity, your physical vitality, and your spiritual sensitivity as one of your most valuable, yet distinctly finite and non-renewable resources. Each day, you awaken with a certain measure of this precious energy, which you must then allocate towards engaging with the world, pursuing your goals, nurturing important relationships, fulfilling responsibilities, and cultivating your own well-being. Yet consider how frequently, often unconsciously, we squander this invaluable resource on interactions, thoughts, and situations that yield little or no positive return. Activities that ultimately drain our reserves rather than replenishing them. Think honestly about the cumulative cost. How much energy is expended engaging in arguments that ultimately resolve nothing constructive, going back and forth endlessly without progress? How much mental bandwidth is consumed trying to justify your choices or prove your worth to individuals who seem perpetually critical or determined to misunderstand you? How much emotional vitality is drained by holding on to past hurts, replaying negative encounters in your mind, dwelling on perceived slights, or allowing anxieties about potential future conflicts to dominate your thoughts? Every single time you allow disrespect to successfully provoke an unproductive emotional reaction, every time you get drawn into a protracted, pointless argument with someone lacking respect or reason, every time you invest significant mental energy stewing over perceived offenses, or worrying about others' opinions, you are effectively depleting your limited daily supply of energy. You are spending your invaluable inner currency on things that offer zero positive return and frequently leave you feeling exhausted, frustrated, unfocused, and less equipped to engage with the people and pursuits that truly matter. It's a difficult but necessary truth that some individuals seem to almost thrive on conflict and negativity. They don't appear genuinely interested in finding peaceful solutions, building bridges, or fostering positive growth. Instead, their primary mode of operation involves creating drama, stirring up tension, provoking reactions in others, perhaps finding a perverse sense of energy or importance in the ensuing chaos. They may consistently bring problems rather than solutions, complaints rather than contributions, criticism rather than encouragement. When you recognize this pattern in certain individuals, understand that attempting to engage with them on a logical, constructive, or emotionally healthy level is almost always a futile endeavor. By reacting to their provocations, by trying to argue rationally against their negativity, by investing your emotional energy in their drama, you are inadvertently giving them exactly what they crave: your attention, your energy, your emotional response. You are allowing their internal state to dictate the terms of the interaction and effectively granting them permission to siphon off your vital resources, resources that could and should be invested in your own well-being, growth, peace, and purpose. However, the moment you make a conscious, unwavering decision to protect your energy, choosing strategic silence, calm disengagement, or firm boundaries over futile reaction, you decisively cut off their supply. You refuse to fuel their negativity with your response. You reclaim control over your own internal state and preserve your precious resources for more worthy pursuits. This requires cultivating significant discipline and self-awareness. It means learning to recognize energy-draining interactions or individuals quickly. It means developing the courage to say no to conversations that lead nowhere productive. It means prioritizing your own peace and focus above the perceived obligation to engage every stimulus or respond to every demand. Consider the people you know who seem perpetually exhausted, stressed, overwhelmed, or stuck, despite perhaps being constantly busy. Often their depletion isn't solely the result of productive hard work on meaningful goals. It stems from allowing their energy to be constantly fragmented and drained by things that don't genuinely serve their higher purpose or well-being. They react impulsively to every minor slight, get drawn into every piece of workplace gossip or family drama, feel compelled to respond to every critical comment online, overcommit themselves out of an inability to say no. They haven't mastered the crucial art of selective engagement, the wisdom of discerningly ignoring the non-essential or detrimental. Consequently, when rare moments potentially available for deep work, focused creativity, meaningful connection, or restorative rest arise, they find themselves lacking the necessary mental clarity or emotional bandwidth because their energy reserves have already been squandered elsewhere. Don't allow this pattern to define your life. Recognize the immense value of your focus and energy. Guard it fiercely as you would protect your most valuable physical possession. Refuse to squander it on negativity, pointless arguments, trivial distractions, or individuals committed to misunderstanding or provoking you. Instead, intentionally redirect that conserved energy towards pursuits that genuinely build you up. invested in your personal growth, deepen your relationship with God, nurture supportive relationships, pursue your God-given purpose with passion, cultivate inner peace, serve others meaningfully. Start prioritizing focused, productive action over shallow, reactive busyness. Choose thoughtful, intentional responses only to situations that truly warrant your attention rather than reacting impulsively to every external stimulus. Develop the internal discipline necessary to stay centered and focused amidst the inevitable chaos and distractions of the world. When you begin to operate with this level of intentionality, consciously protecting your energy as the precious, finite resource it is, others will notice the shift. They might not comprehend your newfound focus or your calm refusal to engage in previous patterns of negativity or drama. They might wonder why you seem less available for gossip or conflict. But eventually, the results stemming from your conserved and wisely invested energy, your increased peace, your focused productivity, your undeniable growth will speak volumes, demonstrating the profound power of mastering your inner energy economy. Actions speak louder, letting results be your response. People will inevitably form opinions and express them. They will talk, critique, doubt, question, and sometimes even actively oppose your choices, your path, or your potential, often based on their own limited understanding, biases, or insecurities. When you encounter this negativity, this doubt, this disrespect directed towards you, the immediate, almost primal human temptation is to engage verbally, to launch into elaborate explanations justifying your actions, to mount a vigorous defense against criticism, to present compelling counter-arguments to refute their doubts, to forcefully assert your worth, essentially trying to talk them into seeing things your way, into acknowledging your value, into respecting your journey. We feel an intense urge to correct their perception, to win the argument, to have the last word. But consider a far more potent, enduring, and ultimately satisfying strategy. Let your consistent actions, your tangible progress, your undeniable results serve as your primary, most eloquent response. Understand this crucial principle. While words can be necessary and helpful in certain contexts, they are often cheap, easily spoken, and just as easily dismissed or forgotten, especially by those already inclined to doubt or criticize you. Talk is abundant in our world. Disciplined, focused, consistent action that produces real results is comparatively rare. Anyone can articulate ambitious plans, boast about future potential, or argue passionately for their viewpoint. However, true power, lasting proof of capability, undeniable impact, these are forged not primarily through compelling rhetoric, but through the steady, often unglamorous, diligent execution of purposeful action over time. Therefore, let the doubters harbor their doubts. Let the critics voice their criticisms. Let the naysayers indulge in their speculation. At the end of the day, their words possess remarkably little objective power to alter your fundamental reality or ultimately impede your God-ordained progress unless you grant them that power by allowing their negativity to distract your focus, drain your energy, or deter you from taking consistent action. The most effective way to silence external noise is often through the undeniable evidence of internal progress manifested outwardly. You simply do not possess a moral or social obligation to engage in verbal battles to validate your worth or justify your chosen path to every skeptic or critic. Attempting to argue logically with someone committed to misunderstanding you or viewing you through a negative lens is often like trying to reason with a storm, a futile expenditure of energy that rarely yields positive results. Trying relentlessly to prove your value to individuals who seem determined to overlook or diminish it is an exhausting pursuit that diverts precious time and focus away from the very actions that would eventually demonstrate your worth undeniably. Instead of getting bogged down in defensive explanations or reactive arguments, consciously choose to channel that same energy, that same focus, that same determination into the work itself, into your personal growth, your skill development, your project execution, your consistent progress towards your goals. When you steadfastly show up day after day, diligently perform the necessary tasks, courageously overcome obstacles, and begin to achieve tangible, measurable results, those results themselves will eventually speak with a clarity, authority, and conviction that no mere argument could ever match. This principle marks a fundamental difference between individuals who ultimately achieve significant goals and those who remain perpetually stuck, often lamenting their circumstances or blaming others. Those who habitually squander their finite time and invaluable energy constantly arguing, defending themselves against every perceived slight, feeling compelled to justify every decision, needing to prove themselves right in every minor dispute, inevitably remain distracted and fragmented. They stay caught up in the unproductive cycle of external conflict, entangled in negativity and drama, their focus diverted from the actions that would actually propel them forward. Meanwhile, those individuals who cultivate the discipline of quiet focus, who intentionally keep their heads down, tune out the external noise, ignore the irrelevant commentary, and consistently dedicate their primary energy towards moving forward on their chosen path. These are the individuals who invariably make substantial, often seemingly effortless progress. They steadily rise above the surrounding chatter. They achieve their objectives. And often, by the time the doubters and critics pause long enough to notice their advancement, they are already operating at a level significantly beyond the reach of petty negativity or uninformed criticism. Understand that choosing strategic silence regarding your plans or progress, especially in the face of negativity, is not an act of surrender or an admission of weakness. It is a demonstration of profound strategic wisdom. The enemy, as well as insecure or jealous individuals, will often attempt to bait you into unproductive battles specifically designed to waste your time, drain your emotional reserves, and divert your focus from your God-given purpose. They provoke, hoping to pull you down into their level of chaos, seeking the validation of your reaction. But when you consciously choose not to engage, when you remain steadfastly focused on your own lane, prioritizing productive action over performative reaction, you not only preserve your precious peace and energy, but you often eliminate the conflict altogether by refusing to grant it oxygen. Remember, tangible success possesses an inherent power to silence noise. When you become demonstrably too busy building a meaningful life, pursuing your purpose with passion, growing personally and spiritually, and achieving real results, you genuinely lose both the time and the inclination for engaging in petty disputes or validating yourself through pointless arguments. Think about the truly great figures throughout history who have left an indelible positive mark on the world. They invariably faced intense criticism, profound hatred, widespread doubt, and significant opposition. Did they dedicate the majority of their limited time and energy meticulously responding to every detractor, engaging every critic in debate, or arguing endlessly with every naysayer? Rarely. They understood their core purpose, maintained unwavering focus on their mission, and powerfully let their work, their achievements, their character, their lasting impact be their ultimate undeniable response. This must become your adopted strategy as well. Refuse to get drawn into the exhausting, unproductive game of trying to verbally convince small-minded individuals of your potential greatness. Instead, simply demonstrate your greatness through consistent, focused, excellent action. Keep moving forward steadily, quietly, purposefully. Let your unwavering consistency, your quiet discipline, your tangible progress, and ultimately your undeniable success serve as your most eloquent and irrefutable reply. People will notice. They always eventually do. Initially, as you begin to rise and succeed, some might intensify their efforts to pull you down, perhaps increasing their criticism or skepticism. But when they consistently observe that their negativity fails to shake you, that their doubts do not deter you, that you refuse even to acknowledge their attempts to derail you, a significant shift often occurs. Their power over you evaporates. Nothing confuses or disarms detractors more effectively than someone who remains completely unaffected by their attempts to provoke. Eventually, when the results of your quiet, diligent work become self-evident, the goal achieved, the character refined, the success manifested, the very same people who previously doubted, disrespected, or criticized, you will often be left with no choice but to silently acknowledge the reality of your accomplishment. That is the profound, quiet power of strategic silence backed by relentless, focused action. That is why choosing not to react verbally to disrespect is often not about passively accepting it, but about strategically channeling your precious energy where it truly matters, building your life, fulfilling your purpose, and letting your success become the ultimate answer. The reflection in the mirror: disrespect reveals the giver. When someone directs disrespect towards you, whether it manifests as cruel words, dismissive behavior, unfair judgments, condescending attitudes, or deliberate attempts to undermine your efforts, the natural, almost instantaneous human reaction is often to internalize it, to feel personally attacked, diminished, wounded, or angered. That sharp sting of being devalued, overlooked, or slighted hits deep within our core, often triggering automatic defensive mechanisms, an urgent desire to correct the perceived wrong, a need to justify ourselves, or an impulse to make the offender understand the pain they have inflicted. However, cultivating profound emotional resilience and inner peace requires grasping and internalizing a perspective-shifting, liberating truth. Disrespect aimed at you is almost never fundamentally about you. It is almost always a reflection of the internal state, the character flaws, the hidden insecurities, the unresolved pain, or the distorted perspectives residing within the person giving the disrespect. Their outward behavior acts like a mirror, revealing far more about their own inner landscape, their bitterness, their envy, their fear, their lack of self-worth, than it does about your actual value, character, or reality. People invariably interact with the world and treat others based on the condition of their own hearts. An individual whose heart is filled with anger and bitterness will inevitably tend to spread that same toxicity outwards through critical words or hostile actions. Someone plagued by deep-seated insecurity or feelings of inadequacy may unconsciously or sometimes consciously attempt to make others feel small or insignificant as a misguided strategy to temporarily elevate their own fragile sense of self-worth. A person drowning in their own misery or discontent often finds a perverse temporary relief in attempting to pull others down into their negative emotional state with them. Seen through this lens, their disrespectful words or actions towards you are typically symptoms of their own internal brokenness, projections of their issues, not objective, accurate assessments of your inherent value or character. When you truly grasp and internalize this fundamental principle, it revolutionizes how you process and respond to instances of disrespect. Instead of immediately taking the offense personally, absorbing the blow as if it were a credible indictment of your worth, allowing it to wound your spirit, you can learn to consciously step back emotionally. You can practice recognizing the negativity for what it most likely is, a reflection of the other person's internal struggles, insecurities, or character flaws. By actively choosing not to take personal ownership of their disrespectful behavior, by consciously refusing to carry the heavy burden of their projected negativity, you prevent their brokenness from contaminating your inner peace and defining your reality. In that crucial moment of non-personalization, you powerfully reclaim your emotional sovereignty. You refuse to grant their flawed perspective the authority to dictate how you feel about yourself or derail your emotional equilibrium. This understanding illuminates precisely why choosing silence can be such a remarkably potent and wise response in many situations involving disrespect. Strategic silence in this context communicates powerfully without resorting to aggression or defensiveness. I perceive the negativity you are attempting to project onto me, but I refuse to accept it or participate in this destructive dynamic. Your assessment does not define me. It sends an unambiguous message. While your words, likely stemming from your own issues, may be loud or harsh, but they ultimately hold no genuine weight, authority, or power in my life. It's a quiet declaration of inner strength and healthy boundaries. Furthermore, understand the underlying motivation often driving disrespectful behavior. Individuals who habitually disrespect others are frequently not seeking genuine truth, constructive dialogue, mutual understanding, or respectful resolution. More often, consciously or unconsciously, they are looking for control. They desire to elicit an emotional reaction from you because your reaction makes them feel powerful, significant, or validated in their negativity. They want to feel superior by diminishing you. They want to believe they possess the ability to shake your composure, disrupt your peace, or dictate your emotional state. When you remain calm, composed, and silent, consciously refusing to provide the emotional outburst or defensive justification they are seeking, you effectively neutralize their strategy. You leave them holding their own toxic negativity, forced perhaps to confront their own reflection in the mirror of your quiet strength and self-control, without the convenient distraction of an escalating external conflict. Often this absence of the expected reaction is precisely what they are desperately trying to avoid. The uncomfortable task of facing themselves, their own pain, their own shortcomings. They project insults outward because they fear looking inward. They attack because they fear being genuinely seen or exposed. This realization frees you from the exhausting, often futile endeavor of trying to argue rationally with them, explain yourself endlessly in hopes of gaining their understanding, justify your actions meticulously, or demand from them a level of respect they seem constitutionally incapable of giving. You simply cannot force someone to see reality when they are determinedly viewing it through their own distorted, negative lens. You cannot compel someone to offer genuine respect if their own heart lacks it. Therefore, the most effective, self-preserving, and often most dignified course of action is frequently to walk away, not in a spirit of defeat, anger, or submission, but in quiet wisdom, profound self-respect, and a clear understanding that further engagement is unproductive. Disengaging from pointless toxic battles doesn't diminish your strength. It demonstrates your wisdom and preserves your invaluable energy. You were not placed on this earth with the primary assignment of spending your precious life constantly trying to convince hostile, critical, or small-minded individuals of your inherent worth. You were not created to engage in endless, draining back-and-forth arguments with people who, through their consistent behavior, demonstrate a fundamental lack of respect even for themselves, let alone others. You have far more significant, life-giving things to focus your attention and energy on. Your personal growth, your relationship with God, your positive contributions, your God-given purpose. Accept the difficult but liberating truth that some people, regardless of your character, your efforts, your kindness, or your achievements, will simply never respect you or accurately perceive your true value. That limitation resides within them, not within you. Their respect is not a prerequisite for your success, your happiness, your peace, or your fulfillment. Their validation is not required for you to confidently pursue your God-given dreams or walk securely in your identity. What ultimately defines you is not their flawed, often negative perception, but how you consistently choose to carry yourself with integrity, how you continue to move forward purposefully despite their negativity, and how you steadfastly refuse to allow their toxic projections to take root in your spirit and define your reality. So the very next time someone directs disrespect your way, consciously pause. Before reacting, firmly remind yourself, this negativity is not truly about me. It is almost certainly a reflection of their own internal struggles, insecurities, or emptiness. Make the powerful choice not to accept their baggage as your own. Maintain your inner peace. Choose silence or calm detachment if necessary. Let them retain ownership of the weight of their own words and actions. Because in the final analysis, disrespect invariably speaks volumes, revealing far more about the character and condition of the person giving it than about the inherent worth of the person receiving it. The crossroads of reaction, dignity in restraint. Consider carefully the critical moment, that split second immediately following an act of disrespect directed towards you. In that instant, a cascade of internal reactions often occurs. A surge of adrenaline, a flare of wounded pride, demanding defense, a rush of anger seeking expression, an intense desire to retaliate or set the record straight forcefully. Everything within our natural fallen human inclination often screams for an immediate, powerful, verbal reaction. It feels like standing at a crucial crossroads, one path well-trodden and instinctual, leads down the road of sharp retorts, defensive justifications, angry confrontations, or perhaps even passive-aggressive responses. The other path, often less traveled and requiring conscious effort, leads towards disciplined silence, thoughtful restraint, and the preservation of inner composure. Most people operating on autopilot or societal conditioning instinctively veer towards the first path. They believe, often mistakenly, that reacting fiercely, giving someone a piece of their mind, engaging in verbal sparring, or forcefully defending their honor equates to demonstrating strength, asserting boundaries, or ensuring they are not perceived as weak. But pause and objectively analyze the typical outcome of such emotionally charged reactions. When you allow yourself to be pulled into the heat of the moment, responding impulsively out of anger or hurt, are you truly proving your strength and maintaining control? Or are you in fact inadvertently demonstrating that the other person successfully manipulated your emotional state, effectively handing over control of your own inner equilibrium to them? Have you truly gained anything positive or constructive? Or have you merely escalated the negativity, potentially damaged a relationship further, and certainly depleted your own precious emotional energy? True, enduring dignity is rarely found in the volume of one's voice, the sharpness of one's comeback, or the perceived victory in a verbal altercation. Rather, genuine dignity resides in the quiet strength of self-control, the wisdom to discern when engagement is necessary versus when disengagement is wiser, and the unwavering refusal to be dragged down into unproductive negativity or provoked into behavior beneath one's own standards. People will inevitably attempt to push your buttons throughout life. They will test your patience with inconsiderate actions, probe your boundaries with challenging questions, or try to provoke you with insulting remarks, often hoping to elicit that satisfying reaction that makes them feel powerful or validated. They seek to disrupt your inner peace and pull you into their own emotional storm. The very second you take the bait, the instant you step out of your character and react purely from a place of raw emotion, anger, defensiveness, hurt, you have, in a crucial spiritual and emotional sense, already lost. You're no longer operating from a position of wisdom, centeredness, self-possession, or strength. You are now playing their game according to their negative rules, fueled by the very toxicity they initiated. This is precisely why choosing silence, exercising restraint, becomes such a profoundly powerful act of asserting true control over yourself. It represents the conscious ability to observe a provocation, acknowledge any internal emotional response it might trigger, anger, hurt, frustration, and yet choose not to grant that initial impulse control over your outward behavior or words. It's the spiritual and emotional maturity to look at someone attempting to ignite chaos or inflict pain and communicate, perhaps without uttering a single syllable, "You do not possess that kind of influence over my inner state. My peace is not yours to disturb. My dignity is not yours to compromise." This response, or rather non-response, often baffles and disarms those accustomed to predictable emotional reactions. They often misunderstand strategic silence, misinterpreting it as weakness, fear, intimidation, or having nothing valid to say. They fail to recognize it as the hallmark of genuine confidence and profound self-mastery. Remember, true confidence doesn't feel the compulsive need to be constantly announced, defended, or proven through verbal combat. Just as a mighty lion feels no need to engage in a roaring match with every yapping hyena to demonstrate its strength. A person secure in their own worth and identity doesn't feel obligated to enter every verbal skirmish or respond to every provocation. Often it is the loudest person in the room, the one perpetually needing the last word, the one constantly feeling compelled to prove themselves right or superior, who is actually masking deep-seated insecurity. True strength, conversely, is often measured by composure under pressure, the ability to remain centered when others unravel, the wisdom to gracefully walk away from situations not because of inability to respond, but because of the clear understanding that responding would be unproductive, beneath one's dignity, or simply not worth the expenditure of energy. When someone insults you with the specific intention of seeing if they can break your composure, test your limits, lure you out of character, or gain control through provocation, and you respond with uncontrolled anger, defensiveness, or tearful fragility, you inadvertently grant them the very victory they were seeking. You confirm their perceived power over your emotional state. But when you resolutely refuse to give them that satisfaction, when you consciously hold your peace with quiet dignity, when you decline to match their negative energy with your own, you decisively take all the power back. They are left holding their own toxic provocation with no reciprocal energy to feed on, no escalating conflict to hide within, nothing left to manipulate or control. Their attempt has utterly failed. Furthermore, consider the lasting impact on your own self-perception and narrative. When you successfully walk away from a potentially volatile situation with your dignity fully intact, having refused to allow provocation to break you down or lure you into regrettable behavior, you remain firmly in control of your own story. You avoid the lingering shame or regret that often follows impulsive, angry words or actions. You're not defined by a momentary lapse in judgment or loss of temper. Instead, you reinforce positive aspects of your own character, your composure under pressure, your self-discipline, your unwavering self-respect, your ability to rise above pettiness and maintain focus on what truly matters. So the very next time you find yourself facing disrespect, consciously challenge the instinctive urge to react immediately and defensively. Reframe silence not as backing down or weakness, but as a strategic choice, a powerful demonstration of rising above, an assertion of inner fortitude. Stand firmly grounded in your confidence, knowing you don't need to engage in small, unproductive battles to prove your worth. Choose to walk away with your dignity preserved, understanding that in refusing to lower yourself to the level of the disrespect shown, you have already achieved the most significant victory. The victory over your own reactive impulses, securing your peace and maintaining control of yourself. The wisdom of time, letting reality speak. There exists a profound, often underestimated power inherent in exercising patience and allowing time itself to serve as the ultimate arbiter and revealer of truth, especially in situations involving disrespect or misunderstanding. When someone directs unfair criticism, false accusations, or disrespectful behavior towards you, the immediate, deeply ingrained human instinct is almost always reactive. We feel an urgent compulsion to correct the narrative immediately, defend our reputation vigorously, demand an apology forcefully, or make the offender instantly see the error of their ways and acknowledge the hurt they've caused. We crave immediate resolution, immediate vindication. But pause and consider a different, often far more powerful and certainly more peace-preserving approach. Recognizing that most individuals who habitually engage in disrespect, particularly chronic critics, gossipers, or those operating from malice or deep-seated insecurity, aren't genuinely interested in objective truth, mutual understanding, or reasoned discourse in that heated moment. They are often not seeking clarity. Rather, they might be acting out of their own ego needs, projecting their own pain, attempting to exert control, or simply seeking the drama of conflict. Trying to reason logically with someone emotionally charged or operating from a place of bad faith is usually a frustratingly futile endeavor. Demanding respect from someone fundamentally determined not to give it is often counterproductive. Attempting to force understanding upon a mind resolutely closed to your perspective rarely succeeds. Engaging them directly on their terms, meeting their negativity with your own reactive energy, often just pulls you down into their world, a realm frequently ruled by chaos, distorted perceptions, and raw emotion, where logic and reason hold little sway. Once you step onto that battlefield and play by their rules, you have, in a critical sense, already surrendered control of your own peace and potentially compromised your own dignity. The strongest, most dignifying, and often most strategically effective response, therefore, is frequently no immediate verbal response at all. This deliberate choice of silence is not about condoning their behavior, passively accepting falsehoods, or admitting defeat. It is about possessing the profound wisdom to understand that time and unfolding reality often speak far more eloquently, convincingly, and enduringly than any immediate reactive words ever could. Nothing tends to humble an arrogant critic or silence a persistent doubter more effectively in the long run than witnessing the person they underestimated, ridiculed, dismissed, or tried to tear down quietly persevere, maintain their integrity, and ultimately succeed or be vindicated by the clear evidence of reality itself. When you consciously choose to hold your peace in the immediate aftermath of disrespect, refusing to waste precious energy trying to correct every insult, counter every accusation, or win every verbal skirmish, life itself, under God's sovereign hand, often has a remarkable way of handling the situation, revealing the truth, exposing falsehoods, and vindicating your character over time. People who engage in disrespect often anticipate, even subconsciously crave, an immediate defensive or angry reaction from their target. It fuels their sense of power, validates their provocation, or provides the drama they seek. They expect you to engage, argue, justify, or become flustered. But when you meet their negativity with calm, composed silence, when you refuse to provide the anticipated emotional fuel for the fire they are trying to ignite, it profoundly unsettles them. It disrupts their expected script. It forces them back upon themselves, leaving them alone with the stark reality and perhaps the ugliness of their own words and actions, without the convenient distraction or justification provided by your reciprocal emotional response. In that unexpected, disarming silence, something powerful can happen within them. Perhaps they begin to actually hear the echo of their own harshness. Perhaps they start to genuinely realize they spoke too quickly, too harshly, or unfairly. Perhaps they begin to feel the uncomfortable weight of their own behavior without you needing to carry any of that burden for them. Your quiet refusal to engage allows reality, and perhaps even their own conscience, to speak more clearly than your defensive words ever could. Again, this strategic silence is not about passively letting significant wrongdoing slide or ignoring genuine injustice indefinitely. It is about understanding that not everything requires your direct, immediate, hands-on intervention to be ultimately addressed and handled appropriately. Trusting the process, trusting that truth possesses an inherent power to surface eventually, trusting sometimes even in the natural principle of sowing and reaping, understanding that actions have consequences, allows you to wisely conserve your precious energy for constructive, positive pursuits rather than draining it in futile, reactive battles. Time possesses a remarkable capacity to expose lies, humble arrogance, reveal true character, both yours and theirs, and ultimately bring hidden things to light. More often than not, individuals who consistently operate with disrespect, malice, or deceit eventually find themselves entangled in the consequences of their own behavior, sometimes even experiencing the same kind of negative treatment they readily dished out to others. This isn't something you need to orchestrate, hope for, or derive vengeful satisfaction from, karma. It's simply recognizing that reality often has its own inherent way of balancing the scales over time. Your primary role isn't to ensure their comeuppance or seek personal revenge. Your role is to maintain your own integrity. Keep moving forward purposefully on your God-given path. Protect your inner peace fiercely and allow your own life, your sustained success despite their negativity, your continued growth in character, your enduring peace amid storms, to serve as the ultimate, undeniable response to their past disrespect. Remember the timeless wisdom encapsulated in the old saying, often expressed in various forms, what goes around comes around. There exists a deep, often observable truth embedded there regarding the eventual consequences of actions. People can talk endlessly, project their negativity, underestimate your potential, doubt your abilities, criticize your efforts, or even attempt to throw obstacles, stones, in your path. But what they ultimately cannot do is stop the purpose God has ordained for your life, provided you remain faithful and focused. They cannot undo the favor He sovereignly places upon you when you walk in integrity. They cannot ultimately change the fact that the very things they arrogantly declared you couldn't achieve, you are, through quiet perseverance, unwavering faith, and God's enabling grace, steadily moving towards accomplishing. So choose strategic silence when appropriate. Choose patience. Choose to let time and unfolding reality serve as your primary vindicators. Stay quiet, not out of weakness or fear, but out of profound strength, wisdom, and confidence, knowing that time will inevitably reveal the truth. And when it does, the very same people who previously doubted, criticized, or disrespected you will often have no choice but to witness your quiet triumph, achieved without you ever needing to waste a single precious word in pointless, energy-draining argument. Let your life speak for itself. Conclusion: the unshaken mind, victory through inner mastery. Ultimately, the journey toward becoming truly unshaken, developing the resilient capacity to remain calm, confident, and unbothered amidst life's inevitable challenges, disrespect, and the fluctuating opinions of others lies not primarily in attempting to control the unpredictable external world, but in diligently mastering your own internal world. Your path is uniquely yours, distinct from all others, ordained by God for His purposes. The relentless noise of external distractions, the tempting glances towards others' perceived progress leading to comparison, the urge to engage in every pointless argument, the sting of unwarranted criticism or disrespect. None of these external factors possess inherent power over your inner state unless you consciously or unconsciously grant it to them. What truly matters, what fundamentally defines your experience and determines your ultimate trajectory, is your internal focus, where you choose to direct your attention, your unwavering discipline, the commitment to consistent action aligned with your values and goals, your ability to fiercely protect your energy, guarding your mental, emotional, and spiritual resources from negativity and depletion, and your dedication to consistent action, moving forward purposefully, even when external validation or immediate results are absent. Learn and practice the profound strength found in strategic silence, recognizing that not every provocation warrants a reaction, and that quiet, focused work often speaks more powerfully than loud pronouncements. Cultivate deep inner confidence, securely rooted in your intrinsic self-worth and your identity in God, thereby rendering external opinions largely irrelevant to your core sense of value. Master your perspective, consciously choosing to interpret challenges as opportunities for growth and negativity as a reflection of others' issues rather than a verdict on your own worth. And consistently choose peace over pride, recognizing that your inner tranquility is far more valuable than the fleeting satisfaction of winning every argument or correcting every perceived wrong. By intentionally cultivating these core principles, anchoring your self-worth within, freeing yourself from the addiction to external approval, mastering your perspective, taking ownership of your emotional responses, building genuine confidence, wielding silence and indifference wisely, and choosing peace over pointless battles, you systematically construct an unshakable inner core. You become truly free to live authentically, pursue your purpose with passion, navigate challenges with resilience, and maintain profound peace, regardless of the inevitable storms or provocations encountered in the external world. This inner mastery is the key to becoming truly, enviably unshaken. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel to watch our next videos.